All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon. This is June 16th, our 1 p.m. budget hearing. We're going to really hope this is our last budget hearing for at least this month. With that, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
It's my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll have to do a roll call vote. Dean?
Aye.
Commissioner Bender?
Aye.
Commissioner Benega?
Aye.
Myself, aye. All in favor, motion passes unanimously. And then we will go on with the budget review, and item number 1 is update to the means of finances, and Susan is going to give them to us.
Good afternoon. We're going to just start by going through a couple of things that we decided on Tuesday, or that you decided on Tuesday, just to recap so that we...
Hey, Dean, could you mute? Because we've got a lot of background noise from your house. Thank you. Okay, Susan.
So the first slide is just a recap of the outside agencies that was discussed on Tuesday. And you can see that the increases that you had discussed approving were the statutorily required one for Southeastern Behavioral Health Care, increasing that by $30,217. That's been reflected in the means of finance, as well as an additional $14,550 for the ambulance services. That is split between those 3 services of Del Rapids, Garrettson, and Humboldt. So the increase to outside agencies is a total of just under $45,000.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Yep.
Our next slide is just an update to the showing the original requested budget that you reviewed on Tuesday. The left side of the page, to the left of the black bar, is the original that you had seen on Tuesday. To the right is the revised one with a few changes that we had discussed on Tuesday. So the upper right side, to the right of the bar, you'll see those two are the same. So we had a preliminary cash applied of approximately $11.7 million. Based upon our discussion, as well as some reviews in our office, we're proposing $245,000 additional revenue that we have reflected in the means of finance. $150,000 of it is related to interest income. There are 2 drivers to that. One is due to some recent changes in the county's interest rates with the banks, as well as the interest rates that the market is seeing as well, how they're going up. As well as we reflected $95,000 in South Dakota CARES Grant administration revenue. As far as adjustments to appropriations, we have the items, for the most part, these items are the same as what you saw on Tuesday. We did zero out the 2 lines that were new hires, just because I know that's part of the discussion today. The reality is that is in and an out, because if you add a position, we will offset that with ARPA funding. So that is it'll be a net zero for those related to appropriations. The outside agencies, the increase of the $14,550 is for the ambulances that we previously discussed, as well as the adjustment to salaries and benefits that were discussed. It translates into about $86,000 decrease in expenditures. So when you get through those adjustments, we end up with factoring in those reimbursements from South Dakota CARES and ARPA of an 8% cash applied rate.
Questions? Jean?
So just for my clarity, and you might be going to talk about this in the next couple of slides. So if we didn't have ARPA money, what would we have to use in opt-out to balance the budget that you've got here?
You would have to make up that roughly between South Dakota CARES and ARPA, $5.6 million. You'd have to use your full rest of your opt-out that you have available.
Plus
plus.
opt out for additional amounts.
You'd have to opt out for additional or increase your cash applied rate to above 8%, which would mean that you're dipping into your savings.
Okay. And that applies to the new positions as well.
Correct.
However, you talked about it being an in and an out, which I understand from an ARPA accounting standpoint, but not long range. So.
Not long range. It is a 1 year in and out. It is not a long-term in and out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any questions on this? Okay. This next slide is the proposed means of finance. So we're showing you today all of the funds that have a budgeted appropriations and revenue. Earlier this week, you saw just the first 5 funds on the left side, from general fund through emergency management. You'll see on the general fund, this ties back to the previous slide showing that 11.4 million of cash applied. And that's roughly that 14%, because you're balancing using ARPA and South Dakota CARES funds to bring that down to more that 8% metric that we have discussed. Just a few other things to note as we go through these. I'm not going to go through all of the columns from a detail perspective. You'll notice that we have property taxes that end up in our general fund, our building fund, debt service fund, library, and fire fund. Those are those same funds that have that less appropriations line of 5%. So when you get into those other funds, you can also see that a lot of times that cash applied at that bottom is very close to that 5% metric, because that is just how we're having to take that out of the calculation as required by statute. So in total, our budgeted appropriations of between all the funds are approximately $113 million. And you can see that over here on the bottom right for total appropriations on the far right side. Any questions? Okay. This next slide, we kind of wanted to talk through, just give you some scenarios. We've talked a lot about knowing that this ARPA money is going to go away, as well as the South Dakota CARES funding, and knowing that using those funds to manage our current operational expenses, we have to be planning ahead as how we manage that when that funding is gone. So we wanted to walk through just some scenarios for you to understand what potential increases to taxes would be if we were to exercise more opt-out, and in what year. So one thing that has changed from Tuesday to today is we've gotten some updated abstract values, and they're preliminary still. They've not been finalized yet by the state. So this number here for preliminary abstract yesterday or 2 days ago is 17.99 billion. We have been able to increase that to 18.57 billion with updated information. That will still change slightly as the summer goes on before the final levies are set, but this is a better representation of where things are today. So when we bring in that updated abstract value from a preliminary perspective, the potential increase in taxes on a $300,000 house is now $8.94. Because that tax value, that the property tax budget of $60.8 million has now been spread over more value, and so that's why that levy was decreased from what we originally shared with you on Tuesday. So we wanted to look at what that would look like for 2023. Let's say if you opted to take $2 million of opt-out, if you felt like maybe we needed a different cash applied rate or some other thing, what that would look like for property taxes for 2023 if you exercise $2 million of our additional opt-out that we have currently approved. If you were to do that, that would do a $41 property tax increase, $41.25 increase.
Yeah, we just kind of spread out our funding over
Right.
the next couple of years instead of,
Just to make sure I'm tracking with
Yes.
you. So if we do nothing, tax impact on a $300,000 home is $8.94.
Correct, using our estimates as of today.
Okay. And if if we took $2 million of the 4.75 opt-out that we have available to us right now,
Right.
as previously approved, then it would take those taxes up to 41.25. So that's not an additional, it's not 41.25 plus 8.94.
No.
Okay.
Correct, it is just, it'd be the new amount of the 4125.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you have a scenario of where if we actually did what we would have to do if we didn't have ARPA money?
I do not have that prepared, but I can certainly do so.
But it'd be, more than double that. Probably.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
for sure.
Yep.
Probably
Yeah, it would
2
be-
times that, maybe.
So then what I did and below the black bar is a scenario for 2024. So let's assume that you keep opt-outs for 23 at the current rate of no additional opt-outs in 23. The first scenario under the black bar is what would happen if you had to do an additional 2 million opt-out in 24, and we did a CPI increase of 3%, which isn't probably unreasonable based upon our current inflation rate, and then growth of 2.75. So currently for 2023 budget, growth is currently budgeted at 3 and 11. So 2.75 growth is pretty conservative. You would be looking at a $73 increase for 2024 in comparison to the proposed 23 estimate. So you'll see that the 3.522 is a total of the levy for 2024 compared to a total levy of 3.279, which would be the estimated levy with no new opt-outs in 23. So that home would have a $73 increase.
It would just be more of a gradual increase.
Now let's use the same scenario of no new opt-outs in 23, but let's say you had to exercise the entire amount of the opt-out that is approved in 2024. That same house would have a $117.49 increase. We just wanted to give you these scenarios for you to see how if you opted to do a larger opt-out, it's going to be what that increase would be to a homeowner.
And I'd also point out that we don't have to make this decision today because we already have the opt-out available to us. We just haven't used it. And so we actually have up until December to decide if we want to use some of that opt-out to offset some of our cash applied numbers and just make it more of a smooth transition instead of a big bite in 4 years or 3 years. So we don't have to make this decision today. This is just kind of, and you'll have, more opportunity then to talk to Susan or Ben if you have questions, other than questions today that might come up in the next week or so.
And the other thing I'll just mention as we go through this, the 2024 scenario also does not layer in any major changes to our services that we're offering. So if you had to do let's say you did the JDC building project that's being discussed, if there was money needed for that project, that would increase potentially other opt-outs that might be needed, or if there are other services that needed to be funded. None of those things are factored into here. This is just simply a very linear calculation, just for you to have some numbers for you to analyze.
If in a couple of years we're going to open that next level of the jail, those numbers, none of that stuff is figured out, so.
And you didn't take this forward into 2025?
I have not, but we
Okay.
certainly can do that. And as Commissioner Heiberger said, we don't need to decide these today. That 4.75 opt-out is available and can be used based upon your analysis and your decision. We will have to finalize a provisional budget by the end of July, and then the final budget is done and submitted by the end of September. So the only change that between provisional and final is we would have to publish any changes between those. So we try to keep that fairly minimal between those just because of the publishing cost.
Yeah.
But these are things that we just would need to iron out by beginning of September.
Okay.
Just a quick question, Susan. I appreciate the information. This is a lot of detail, but In 2023, you used 18,570,000,000. You used the same number for '24.
I did, and that's because I don't have a number. We could certainly put some inflationary rate to that, just to give you an increase on what that could be, but you're correct. It would potentially spread that out. If our value would increase by, let's say, another $500 million, then that would obviously change things as well. And hopefully bring down that levy amount.
And I don't remember if you mentioned at the beginning, but we don't even have a positive number yet for 2022. Isn't that correct? We'll find out later this fall.
Yes, that will be finalized in the upcoming months.
So that also might go up a little bit. You ready for the next page?
Yep.
I think so. Dean, are you doing okay? I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
I'm paying attention here. I guess my only concern on some of this is that we have not had a 3% CIP in years, and now we're factoring that in. And I mean, it's not unreasonable maybe to assume for a couple of years we'll stay above 3, but historically haven't been there. And I'm just wondering what the impact could be if we don't hit that 3%.
And we can certainly do some factoring with that and some pro forma work in the next month, just showing you some different scenarios and what CPI and growth potentially could be, and just run those numbers for you to have some different analysis, if that would be helpful.
Worse than it is right now. All right, should we try the next page?
One of the requests that Commissioner Benega had asked for was just wondering how the 10 million in lost revenue could be factored into our cash analysis over the next couple of years. So we layered that into these slides. So the slide that you have up right now is just what was shared with you on Tuesday. It was what you saw. It shows that we would, with our current opt-out being utilized in 2025, and then not exercising any new opt-outs, that we would dip below 5,000 in cash reserves in 2026. With the additional 10 million of lost revenue going to the next slide, you can see that just bumps that 2026 numbers up 10,000 or 10 million.
Yeah, I was going to say 10,000 would be great.
10 million. So it just really spreads that out. I think some of those things that the commission will have to discuss is how best to use those funds, is to layer it in, do some of the other projects that are needed. Borrowing costs are obviously going to keep increasing as rates go up. So there's a lot of those decisions to be weighed and how best to use those lost revenue funds.
Thanks for doing the extra work.
All right. Any questions for the updates? From Susan, kind of walk through it. I walked through it earlier today with her, so kind of got my head wrapped around it a little bit sooner than you guys had an opportunity to, because I asked all my questions earlier.
I really do appreciate all that work. It is
Yeah.
very helpful to kind of see
Yeah. See where we're at.
it in black and white.
All right. You need a minute to digest?
I'm ready to move on.
We know what the issues are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Item number 2 is discussion and deliberation of staff requests, so that's where we are. How about if we start with, I think we have one position that grant funding ends in 2022, which is the juvenile coordinator. And Daniel is here. I'm looking around the room. There's not that big of a room. I should be able to find you.
We do have the juvenile diversion coordinator. She has been grant funded. That grant funding was a reimbursement of a percentage of her salary and cost. That is running out. I would ask the commission to keep that position. I think that the juvenile diversion program is very successful. There is some reimbursement for successful diversions from the state. Last year we got approximately $70,000 just from those successful diversions. let alone the savings that we'd have by
Excuse me,
not.
whoever's talking, I have a hard time hearing. Can you maybe
Yep.
speak into the microphone better?
It's Mr. Hager, and I will have him speak up a little bit.
You want me to start over?
You probably better. Thanks, Daniel.
No problem. Dean, what I was saying, the juvenile diversion coordinator has been a position where a portion of her salary has been replaced by grant funding. That ends at the end of this year. I am asking that the commission fully fund her position and keep that moving forward. Our juvenile diversion program, I talked a little bit about this in my presentation earlier this year to the commission. It's been a successful program. We do have some reimbursement for individual successful diversions. That was approximately $70,000 last year. That with the savings by not bringing those juveniles into court, quite frankly, is more than what her salary and benefits and health insurance would be. So I am asking the commission to keep moving that forward. I see that diversion program as something that can continue to grow, so I certainly hope that we don't take a step backwards at this point.
Daniel, what are we doing with reimbursements that we're getting from the state for successful diversions? I mean, basically that offsets her salary. So, I mean, is it going back into diversion programs, or where's that money going?
I think a majority of it is being spent by this commission. I do have a line item where I ask for a small amount for diversion programs, but most of that is spent by commission.
That would be interesting to know where that, is it just going, are those dollars just going into the general fund when we get those reimbursements?
I think that they are.
So that would be interesting to know, because they really should probably just go back into diversion, and it would, yeah, it would fund this position going forward, although it's taking it from something else. But I mean, if we're going to make money doing diversions, it should probably go back directly to the diversion coordinator. So I'm in favor of supporting the juvenile diversion coordinator going forward, because I do think it has been wildly successful.
We are seeing decreased recidivism rates with those juveniles who are successfully completing diversion. You know, and that by itself is a big success.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to continuing the position. I would just point out that this is the reason that when we get grant-funded positions, we should pay attention when we sign them up the first time, because it's very difficult to end them once they're in place. But I'm supportive of keeping this position.
And if we had a bad grant-funded person, we would get rid of them. That hasn't happened yet. All right,
Fortunately
so put that one in. We're keeping that one.
A question for me,
Yes.
if I could.
Yep, go ahead, Dean.
Is that position one that we had from our staffing request, or is this addition to?
This is on our staffing request on the grant position review sheet. So that's off of, it's the sheet prior, if you have the sheets in front of you, it's the sheet prior to the staffing request. It's the grant position review, and it's on the bottom of that page.
Yeah, it's page 6 of the human resources.
Pardon me?
Okay, I understand.
And I do think
Yeah.
that it was budgeted. I think it's included in the budgeted amounts now, so it's not.
I would ask,
That request.
I would ask the auditor, that was already included in, so this is not an additional amount, because it was already in the budget. Okay, all right, that's good to know. Did you understand that, Commissioner Karski?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. And that's the only grant position one that we have to approve today. So then we can go on to staffing requests. These are non-grant funded things, Daniel. I'm wondering how you would like to go about this.
Well, I'm always for doing the ones that I think are the easiest first.
To throwing them in or throwing them out?
Well, I would personally think that we should not fund positions where there's a change of leadership in that department. So I would not fund the Register of Deeds position or the auditor's position at this time.
And both of those have, I talked to Julie yesterday, and she said pull hers out, so I didn't mention that. And I think Ben has also said, so we should pull both of those off right away.
Like I said, start with the easy ones.
Yeah, those are the easy ones. As new people come in, they can make those decisions after they have become a part of this group. All right, then it doesn't get easy. Is there anybody specific you want to tackle?
I will start. I did talk to Jamie for a while yesterday afternoon, or Tuesday, whatever the day was. And I'm convinced that we can increase our part-time staffing reimbursement because we're not competitive with the market by any stretch. You can actually go work at McDonald's and make the same amount of money as part-time JDC employees. So to start the conversation, I think we can reduce his request by half and try to find part-time people in those part-time positions by increasing their salaries and not have the benefit package cost, but reduce his request by, instead of 4, we would request 2 at this point. And I did talk to him, and he reluctantly agreed.
Okay.
And he's not
You
here
must
to
have talked to him
defend
after
himself.
I did.
Well, probably.
So
Here,
you're
can I-
suggesting that maybe he keep the supervisor and take the JCO 1 down to, from 3 to 1?
He wants 2 JCO ones when I talked. Well, we have Nate here, so we should
Oh,
talk to
sorry.
Nate a little
Sorry,
bit.
Nate.
Sorry, Nate.
We do see value in full-time staff as opposed to part-time staff as well, just to their immersion into our facility, the programming, the procedures. Part-time staff, it has become a challenge not just with the funding at hiring individuals at $16 an hour. We're getting inexperienced staff that are using that as a pretty quick stepping stone out of our doors. Full-time staff have longer retention. They have the opportunity to build up knowledge base and are more valuable to the safety and security of our institution as well. So it's not just the cost, it's the longevity of the individuals that are there and the safety that people being immersed in the trainings, the weekly staff meetings that a full-time staff provides. So part-time staff kind of leave us in a constant state of flux because it's a more consistent revolving door even than our other retention rate is.
Don't disagree with any of your comments. I'm just basing it on the facts that when I look back at the average number of staff, or average number of participants over the last couple of years, it hasn't changed a lot. So I know they're more difficult to deal with and a little more violent, unfortunately, in a few areas. But we are increasing the number of staff by a couple, and there's no way we're going to get around doing what we need to do to make this thing balance unless we put together a portfolio that it's something we can address over the next couple of months and figure out where we're at by the end of the year with some adjustments.
And of course, as an administrator, I'm always going to want more staff, and
Good.
especially in a safety-conscious environment. A couple things with that. Now, 10% of our stays are mental health holds, and they require a great addition of staff involvement. They're much more time-intensive than the other youth coming into our facility. We've also seen an increase in violent behavior. And with our recent PREA audit, that was an outside auditor certified through PREA that came into our facility who had been an administrator in New York for his entire career, talked about our need for additional staff to provide a safe environment for both our staff and youth.
With our ratios of being 8 to 1, I'm still on the fence as far as, I mean, when I talked to Jamie before you did, and I was ready to go to the 3 JCO1s and eliminate the supervisor at this time as we look forward to changing our facility one direction or another. In the conversation I had with Jamie, he figures we won't be adding a ton of staff as we reconfigure that building, and that by adding these staff, we would hopefully be fully staffed when we have a new look to our facility.
Can I share one more thing
Yep.
in agreement with that?
Yep.
One of our main priorities is to have youth out of their room. Just on a typical night, like last night, we had half of our youth were able to get out, and then we have an admission come in, and we have to bring one of those groups down not only does that cause youth to be in the room more often, but that is a constant state of conflict for staff and youth, because youth are upset that they had the schedule and scheduled time out, but we are staffing and placing individuals in supervision roles up to the max. So if we have an intake call, we have an admission, that means a group of youth are going to their room in order to accommodate that. The same goes if there's a restraint or an emergent situation within our facility.
I think even with 2 additionals, we're still going to have problems. We're going to be locking kids down them more than they're supposed to be. So,
Commissioner Kreisky.
yep, Carrie, you want to, Commissioner Karski, do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, question. Is the 8-to-1 staffing ratio, is that some sort of national standard?
It's
And-
required by law.
and-
Oh, you turned
More
off, there we
time?
go. It's required by law.
What,
Is it state or federal law that it's 8-to-1?
I'm not sure on that.
Jamie just told me
reason
that
I
the other day.
asked the question is, if our jail had the same standard, 8-to-1, we'd have to more than triple the number of correction officers in jail.
Yeah.
A lot of these juveniles are 16, 17, one step away from being tried as adults. Are we over accommodating? Not out there for discussion.
Are we overcompensating with overstaffing for that? As mentioned, that is a requirement that we staff to those ratios.
Yeah.
We also, youth have higher needs, and we have had an increase in a mental health youth that we need to provide opportunities to be out of the room. We have standards where youth need to be out of their room and interacting. We can't lock an individual down as the jail is able to do.
Can I safely say we're between 2 and 3, and we can maybe move on to the next discussion?
I think that's safe. 2 and 3 JCO ones.
Yes,
So the supervisor position is
is
gone.
off the table. Okay, thank you.
And then do we need to add something in if we're going to increase part-time pay?
That's Carrie, I think that's the conversation you need to have. I think Jamie told me yesterday they're paid at $16 an hour, and that's part of the reason we can't keep them. And he had mentioned we used to have 18, and now we have like 8.
Yeah. Jamie and I have had a couple of conversations over the past week, as I have with a couple other areas. Safe Home and JDC in particular are in the salary range where we're trying to hire people at 16 and not having luck. So we are looking at those salary ranges, and we'll likely be coming to you with a proposal sometime soon. If we can increase them even to like an $18, $19 level, we're hopeful we'll have a little bit more success. That's going to cost more, of course, per variable hour. But if you do fund 2 or 3 positions, there's going to be cost savings that you could take from the part-time budget. But given that we're looking at increases of $2 to $3 per hour for those staff, maybe instead of cutting like a $30,000 or $40,000 per position, you should consider that we're going to make it up. So what I'm saying is if you fund 2 or 3 positions where we talked on that line about possibly cutting part-time budget, you might be a little bit more conservative by the amount that you cut there.
Oh, they're part-time budget, yep. Yep, I understand. All right. You want to go on to another hard one and listen to the sheriff's office?
We could, can I ask, could we
Yes.
possibly talk about Safe Home next? Because it's a
Yep.
similar kind of
Sure.
thought process with the variable hour pay and,
Yep.
So the request that we have, we're kind of in that same predicament. We obviously are open 24/7, 365. So we currently staff our overnights with 2 variable houred people, so the part-time staff. What our proposal is that we would hire 1 full-time for overnight, so there is 1 consistent person that's there. 1, it helps with us for our consistency, and 2, it just brings down the amount of part-time staff that we have. We are struggling with trying to hire that for those part-time positions. We had our position posted for a number of weeks, pulled it down, we've given it a new title, so it's better descriptive of what the position is. And we now have reposted it for the last, I think, week and a half. We've had one applicant. It's just tough to staff those. And our staff on those overnights, it's imperative. We've been running with doing some hours with one person there, which is incredibly risky. A great example is about a month ago, we had somebody who just really lost it. And fortunately, it happened during the day when we had full-time staff who knew what to do. Fortunately, they made the right decisions in how to control that person. Had it happened on nights with one person, we would have been in trouble.
So to Commissioner Benniga's earlier point, can we up the pay for the variable hours and try to attract more candidates that way?
We are working with HR, and we have talked about doing that night differential so that it would increase at $1 an hour. I think that's certainly a possibility. Our recruitment's just tough. We've reached out to a lot of places and are still continuing to try to recruit from social work departments at the colleges. We've even talked about trying to partner with some of our agencies that do much of the similar work of working with this population to try to see if some of their part-time staff would want additional hours, but they're stuck and not being able to provide more hours. So we're working every direction that we can to get more staff. But it's tough. Those overnight hours are just tough to staff.
Isn't Augustana starting a master's in social work program?
We've been working, we've talked to Augustana, we've had interns from SDSU, USF, so we're trying to work with all of those to try to see if we can recruit. I know STI has a job fair coming up, and so we're gonna be there with a table to try to recruit from there as well.
Okay.
I heard an ad on the paper, or on the radio the other day, and it was the bus company, and they're paying, it was over $20 an hour for a part-time position to drive a school bus. That's a lot to compete with, and that's daytime hours. Granted, it's a part-time job, but if you're just looking for a part-time job,
Right.
you don't have to work nights at 16 when you can pay 22 and have just a couple hours during the morning. And
Right.
and said they would be flexible with their schedules. It just makes it hard for us as we're looking for.
And I think we're like JDC, you know, our group is incredibly unpredictable. Tough population, not a population that everybody wants to jump at to work with, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd be in favor of trying to increase the variable hour pay and look at a differential before we offer a position with benefits. That'd be my direction.
Okay.
Agree with that for now.
Carrie, that's probably going to come down to you as far as figuring out what you think is a reasonable market cost. As I throw at you that the buses are paying more than 20. I
Yeah.
don't think we can pay that, but what will attract possibly?
I do have a preliminary new matrix prepared that I'm starting to talk to supervisors who have variable hour staff. Looking at this, though, the challenge is the budget and really what you can absorb, especially if you have several staff members. I'm willing to give it a shot, and I'll bring something before you soon, looking maybe more at a base salary range of 18 and then hoping the shift differential helps, and we can see that and maybe need to look at another adjustment for 2023. The debate between a full-time person and a part-time position, having watched Safe Home and JDC struggle, I think those part-time staff have helped fill in. I don't think it offers the same consistency and level as a full-time person does. I know that Joy has struggled with scheduling. Funding a full-time position is difficult, but I just want to be very upfront with you all that I don't know that I hold out a lot of hope even if we were to go to $20 an hour for some of those positions. They still might be challenged.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, the truth of the matter is we don't have any easy choices left. And so I think we've got to try. And we've been able to do that historically, so I think we're just going to have to try.
All right. I was going to go to the sheriff's office, correctional officers and sergeants, if you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah, sure. I was wondering if they were okay with it. Oh,
Oh, okay. Did you want us to do somebody else?
No, he should be right, he's just outside, he was on the phone.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry about that. I'm on a call with the FBI director, deputy director.
We can do
trying to-
somebody else.
No,
I can tell you
this
have
is
more
pretty
important
important to me.
things, just the county commission needs to
Yeah,
talk to you.
it's like, let's get away the, anyway, I just wanted to point out that the positions that we've requested, as you know, Commissioner Bender, as my liaison, those are not the numbers that we started with. You know, we went down, we did what we could to cut down to the point where we feel that those positions are absolutely essential. That's two correctional officers and a sergeant in the jail to do the housing, to work the housing issue for the jail and to manage all the housing, and then one deputy sheriff sergeant on the patrol side to provide adequate coverage around the clock with supervision. So I'm just going to make, you know, I don't want to drag it out. We worked hard to cut down from what the warden originally proposed, and he needed to propose a higher number, but we recognize that that's, you know, these are ongoing expenses. We've heard that about 30 times in the last day or two. So we recognize that, but we also live in a growing community, growing by population. Our calls for service, the types of calls that we're responding on, the types of individuals we're dealing with in the jail environment and on patrol, we feel that the number that we presented to you is our best case scenario. As far as fees, we did review all of our fees. We didn't want to come back in September and say, here's what we think of our fees. You know, we could raise the fingerprint fee a little bit, but if we raise it to $15, it would account for about $7,000 a year is the only increase that you would see. And quite frankly, the people who are coming in for fingerprint cards, many of them are volunteers, they're church daycare workers, they're teachers, they're healthcare workers. They're having to get 2 fingerprint cards anyway, so that's about $25. Then they have to pay for a background check that's done by DCI, so there's already an expense on these individuals. And so we could raise that fee, but I just don't think you see a lot of benefit for doing so. We visited all of our other fees. Many of our fees are set by statute, and so obviously there's no room with those. And that's it, and I'm here to take any questions, and I have great staff here that'll have the details, because I know the devil's in the details.
I have one question. On that parole sergeant, would that be reimbursed by rural counties or rural townships, not townships, rural municipalities?
No.
No,
No.
because some of your rural patrols are paid, you know, reimbursed
Right.
with municipal.
Now, if that
money.
sergeant was doing some contract time in Del Rapids
Right.
for some reason, but typically that sergeant would be available countywide, so he wouldn't be drawing the contract time. Now, if he responds or assists in, let's say, Del Rapids, while he's in that community, he would be reimbursed by Del Rapids.
Okay.
It'd log his hours in any community that he's working in, he or she, but they typically wouldn't be assigned to the community. But again, if there's a call in Crooks, it takes 4 hours, and that sergeant is there with the deputy, there would be 2 deputies at 4 hours each that would be reimbursed.
Your questions? Because I've had lots of chances to talk to the sheriff in the last couple of days, so.
Well, I have not had a lot of detail from him, but we've talked about this, and frankly, I don't think there's an easier thing to explain to the taxpayers than public safety-related hassles that we're all dealing with right now. It's become I'd hate to say a crisis, but it's pretty close to that in some cases, and supporting what he's requesting is probably a priority for me.
Well, I would say he would probably agree that I pushed him on these a bit the last couple of days. And I did, we did go through the budget, and they did reduce some of their asks. I mean, it's difficult. Running a jail is not easy, and it's very staff intensive, and it's going to be more staff intensive as our numbers grow, and we're going to, we've got coming up in the next few years. Hopefully we make it a few years, maybe not, maybe not. We're going to have to fund a whole new shift, and that's going to be a big bite. But I would agree. I've spent a fair bit of time thinking about it the last 24, 48 hours, and I can't really come up with a position out of these four that I could feel good about cutting. So, I think you're right. I think our citizens want police officers that they can count on. I think they generally do count on them, but those police officers need support. They need a seasoned supervisor that they can call when they have tough issues that they're addressing. We need people in the jail that can provide support and take inmates to sick leave, to sick call, and so I am supportive of these positions.
Dean, comments? We're talking about the sheriff's budget requests. I don't know if he's there. I'm supportive, and this isn't meant as a criticism to anyone in this room, but I would argue a lot of the things that the sheriff said applies to safe home, keeping our staff safe, keeping the people safe there, and JDC is the same thing in some ways as a jail, keeping staff safe and keeping kids safe. And I think probably most of the people in this room, I would think all of them, were very put a lot of thought into it, realizing we don't have the money, and maybe they aren't all safety issues, but I think everybody has a really good argument, and so it doesn't make it any easier for us to say no. So,
Well, thank you for your
and
support.
yeah, and I'm not jumping down what you said. I just think there's a lot of them that we're in the same kind of boat, that this is really hard, that they're asking for what they literally think they need. So, yeah. Dean,
And
are you?
Just as an example, yesterday our warrant deputies went out on a warrant looking for a shooting suspect, and immediately things deteriorated. Chase ensued. One of the first people responding on that was a shift supervisor. I was fortunate to have a patrol sergeant out there then. So much of our activity is within the city of Sioux Falls, in particular, even with that supervisor, because of the need to assist with warrant services. It's the statutory duty of the sheriff to serve all warrants, and so there's a lot of them that live in Sioux Falls as well. Fortunately, we also have a great partnership with Sioux Falls PD. They help us with a lot of warrants.
Yeah.
But in these situations like this, we were very fortunate to have a shift supervisor able to respond right away to the warrant service. Had one officer injured. So anyway, I appreciate your support and your recognition of the importance of the positions.
And I don't want my law enforcement out there all by themselves in a dangerous situation. Just not good. Just not good. Dean, I don't know if you heard me, if you're there, and if you wanted to weigh in. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, now I'm on. I heard you, and I'm just curious. Cindy, I can hear you the best, and I've heard the sheriff. I got most of what he. Where are we on? Just recap where we are on the new staffing request. So I make sure I understand.
Yep. So we took the auditor's request off. Safe home, we're going to look at increasing maybe the night differential and the part-time pay at this point. So basically kind of crossed off that full-time position at this time. JCO 1s, we're looking at 2 or 3. We scratched the JCO 2 supervisor, and we just did the 3 that are under Sheriff Milstead's budget, which is the 2 correctional officers and 2 sergeants, 1 on the jail side and 1 on the parole, and we're going to approve those 3. If that's okay with you?
So the total number that we're considering is how many FTEs?
We got 7 right now, 6 6 or 7. We haven't done everybody yet.
Yeah, we're not going in order,
Make
Dean.
sure that's what I got. I just wanted to make sure I did understand.
Yeah, we're just jumping all over the page, so. All right, any questions for the sheriff before he leaves the room on a phone call? I think you're good.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you want to go to equalization there at the top of the page.
Hello. Well, I know this is hard work to do. Again, just like everyone else, we see the need, we have the need. Anybody's got to be really blind to not see what's been going on in our community. And I ran just some quick numbers here just this morning, just to kind of reaffirm why we're asking for a position for another appraiser. Sioux Falls building permit count, right now from November 1st through June 3rd, I've got 3,378 permits. Small towns, 505. New plats, new parcels that have created this year, countywide, we're at 900. Sioux Falls homes, twin homes, townhouses, right now, today, we've got 720 permits for new homes. That is my staff going and looking at those homes. This is just the new stuff. This isn't anything that was permitted last year that wasn't completed that we also need to go to. On top of that, starting our physical review this year, that hasn't been done for 20 years. That has negated us to have volumes of corrections as we send out appeals or assessment notices and have calls, and we go out and look because we haven't been to these homes in 20 years. I mean, we're working, we're getting through it, but we're getting stretched thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And, you know, we looked at it. I was originally, again, going to request 2 this year. As you saw in my long-range plan, I opted to go for 1 this year. You gave us 1 for this year, which is great. We're starting to go. One of the main points is when we get to our physical review, right now without the addition of the 1 that we got this year, we're projecting probably 10 years, and that's without even calculating in future growth. It would take us to get through every property and to go to. Standards are 4 to 6, and I'm projecting with this one here, we'll be getting down into that 6 to 8 year range. So I do have in my long-range plan, instead of asking for 2 this year, to try and trickle our way into that 1 this year, and already projecting 1 and I don't want to talk next year, but if we were given that one, I think that would offset us for probably 4 more years, give or take. So we wouldn't ask if we didn't need. I went through my budget with a fine-tooth comb. I decreased quite a few line items. Nothing was huge, but I tried to offset where we had some overage in our lines and run as slim and thin as we could. So I know everyone's got needs, but I ask, look around Sioux Falls and see what's going on. Everything that's going up, every change requires our office to go visit, inspect, measure, record, document, track. We're getting thinner and thinner.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I would say that you got a new appraiser in 2018 and in 2022. You had a new senior property tech in 2019. So there has been growth in your office. We have added to your office. And I think for that reason, I'm not in favor of adding this year.
I think that's where I'm at too. It's just, I'd add them all if I could.
I totally understand. I mean, when it comes to the budget and you've got to pencil it out, I get it, you know. We're going to do the best we can.
Yeah.
We don't.
You could put an appraiser in every corner and raise values, but we still only get 3% from the
Right.
state.
Well, and with that too, you know, and I don't know, I missed the first meeting, so I don't know where the discussion was on the beacon. Hopefully that helps if that gets approved, and that hopefully will, because that will pay for itself.
I think that's in there. That's already in there.
That hopefully cuts down, and I put that in there too, that really cuts down on a future property tech position, because that will eliminate phone calls and conversations and data requests. I mean, that really helps stave any changes off in that. But where we're going to, our boots on the ground is where our need is and where it's going to continue to be, so.
Yeah.
I have a question about, will we ever get to a point where we can do a majority of that stuff by virtual reality, if you will, with drones without sending people out?
Well, then you
Especially
need
with
operators,
maneuver.
but no, I don't know. I don't know where that future is gonna be with the inspections with drones. You know, I know there's a few counties that are testing some of that now, and that works. I can see that working very well for some of our rural stuff, especially like reviews and things like that. Drones are never gonna tell us what the interior is, what the basement finish is, what the plumbing fixture counts are, those things that add into our valuations, so that's always gonna require, and we're required by law, specifically if we ever are challenged on anything, that we've conducted a physical on-site inspection of that property. I don't think that's ever gonna change, so.
And how does
And we
that-
do as much as we can. I mean, when we have questions on things or something comes up, we'll go in and look at current Realtor listings, because, you know, everyone likes to advertise how great their home is, and they will put in there and they'll have pictures of the basement finish and we do a lot of that without benefit of actual interior inspection based on those listings and things like that to save some of that off. But again, it's not measurements.
No, how does that building permit application compare to what you actually see sometimes? Values the same?
Oh, no. A lot of them, when you look at the building permit valuations, and I'll just stick to commercial, specifically, they're gonna take out a building permit for grading and site prep. That's zero value for us. They're gonna take out a permit for electrical, plumbing. That's adding no value for us at that point. Once the building is completed, then when we get to the hard structures and we're measuring that and putting that in, the HVAC, things like that, that's where we're gonna pick that up. So in totality, not even close. And then dealing with the different entities, I don't know the formulas they're using to conduct their fees for permits. You know, some of them are, small towns might be, it costs you $15 for a permit to build a $50,000 house or $1 million house. I don't know how, there's no real relationship to that. So, well, thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Karski, do you have any questions for equalization? We did tell him we are not going to give him his position.
I don't at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we're going to go down to public advocate.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Julie Hofer, Public Advocate's Office. I am requesting a Deputy Public Advocate position for next year. Historically, looking at numbers, going back to 2017, while our open cases have pretty much stayed the same, when you look at the numbers, according to national standards, we have 7 attorneys, including myself, that are basically handling the caseload of close to 11 attorneys. We have been able to do that because of the 3 of the attorneys in our office, including myself, have over 25 years' experience. The other 3 have over 15 years' experience. And so because of our experience, we've been able to handle a caseload like that. I started taking a full caseload myself, just so the other attorneys weren't overloaded. So I have that in addition to my administrative duties, and I think I'm on 7 or 8 different committees as well. So historically, we have not asked for a lot, but I think we're at the point right now where we need that extra attorney.
I'm just going to be the hatchet person today, I guess. I'm not in favor of adding the position this year. I think the fact that your new cases that you've opened hasn't increased. I just am we got to cut somewhere, and I don't see adding a position to your office this year.
Yeah. Sorry, Julie.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It isn't easy, you guys. Come up here and do our job for just 5 minutes. Although I could say the same for you. I don't want to do your job either. None of you guys have easy jobs either. Okay, State's Attorney's Office. Daniel, you're back up.
You've skipped the public defender.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't know if
sorry.
you did that on purpose.
Oh, is Julie here too? Yeah. I'm here. Sorry. Yeah, here for Tracy. Thank you. Sorry. I'm scribbling all over my page, so.
Good afternoon, Betsy Doyle. I'm the Chief Deputy in place of Tracy today. She's out of the office this week, so I'm happy to be here. Our department's request for this commission was to add 2 paralegal positions. I'll start by explaining kind of the data and the ratio that we have for attorneys to paralegals. Our office, full staff, has 27 attorney positions, and we have 6 paralegals. That also includes the lead paralegal position that this commission granted us a year and a half ago. That lead paralegal position is assigned to do attorney work and assist attorneys in their cases. However, she also handles administrative duties. The paralegals in our office perform a vast amount of different duties, not limited to just solely paralegal type work. Our paralegals, in addition to drafting legal work, legal paperwork, legal motions, also facilitate bed dates. They help connect our clients with services in the community, such as treatment or mental health services. They also contact witnesses and conduct investigation for our cases. They are a large part in our review and summarizing of discovery that we receive digitally, as well as audio and visual discovery that we need to review. The paralegals do the work of other positions within the county, such as discovery digital technician or witness assistants, and we label them or call them as paralegals. The ratio that we have for paralegals or support staff at pay grade 16 in our office is 1 paralegal to 4.75 attorneys. Other legal offices within the county have ratios such as 1 to 3 and 1 to 3.5. Requesting 2 additional paralegal positions helps equalize that ratio for our office as the other legal offices within the county. As a supervising attorney, I commonly hear feedback from attorneys, particularly those who have been in other offices or in the private sector, and particularly those who are leaving the office and stating reasons for leaving. The number one reason that we have is for burnout, and one solution that has been proposed by many attorneys within our office is that we have additional support staff. Since 2017, we've had, I believe, 3 attorney positions being granted. We've had, since 2013, 2 additional paralegal positions. We've seen an increase in the work that our office does within the specialty courts, and we believe that adding additional paralegal positions would help limit clients' custody status, would help limit delays that are being offered or asked for in cases due to being unable to line up connection to resources, draft motions and briefs, and assisting in the specialty court and competency issues that we see. Thank you.
Thank you. In the past, we've always said, I don't know that you're going to get them, but, you know, it does make more sense to add legal assistants over attorneys as far as just helping you get your work done, and it's cheaper to add a legal assistant over an attorney. I get that. Right now, you're telling me that the rest of the city, their ratios are 3 to 1 and we're 4 to 1. That's pretty good odds.
Yeah. That would include all pay grade support staff at 16, not just paralegals, given the additional duties that paralegals within our office perform.
Commissioner Karski is waving at you.
I'm sorry. Good thing somebody's watching. Yes, Dean, go ahead.
Thank you. You know, the Public Defender's Office has really, in the last several years, worked hard at getting the right people doing the right jobs. And I know times are really tight budgetarily. I would support at least 1 paralegal for this office. I think it keeps our attorneys working at the jobs they need to be working at, and the future requests for attorneys down. So I would support at least 1 paralegal.
I
Thank
can
you.
support 1 paralegal.
I have that in my draft, so we're good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, then we're going on to State's Attorney's Office.
Well, it's nice to hear some good news before I came up here. I think I figured out if,
Not everybody gets
Gene
shot.
talks first, that's bad. I'm asking for 2 legal office assistants. Take this process very seriously, have tried to shift, and I'm sure the commission remembers I asked for these 2 last year as well. I do really view these as the bare minimum need at this point, looking historically at the state's attorney's office. Going back two state's attorneys, two elected state's attorneys, in 1989, there were 10 lawyers, 5 legal office assistants, almost that 50% ratio there. Fast forwarding to 2007, 20 lawyers, 9 legal office assistants. Fast forward to today, we've grown, and I think that growth was needed. It's needed to prosecute, to give good legal advice to the other elected department heads and the non-elected. We grew to 37 lawyers, and from 2007 to today, we've added 1 legal office assistant. So that really shifted from, close to 45% at the time down to 27. So those legal office assistants, they're not really able to keep up with the work that they have right now, and I think that's because we haven't prioritized adding them into the office as we moved with PBK, as we moved to looking for ways to make the lawyers and the investments that we've already made into the office pay dividends. I think that shifting a lot of that work to those legal office assistants will benefit the office. I think that in the next year, as we remodel, as we implement that software, we're going to need those positions. Quite frankly, again, we need them now. We don't have some of that space or that software. So I do think that those two are needed. I think if you look at historically the growth that's happened, that's probably something that just wasn't as valued prior to me taking office. And again, I'm not, I think that they had to focus on other things. There's a lot of law and change in evidence that dictates what positions get added. If you look at Marcy's Law, certainly you had to focus on adding victim witness assistance, as everyone in the world puts a camera on their body, on their cars. That just requires digital discovery text. So we're at a point right now where I think we have an opportunity to try and catch up with those legal office assistants, but the ratio that we have now and the amount of work that they have to do, it's not working.
Dan, where are we at with the software implementation?
Yep, so that process is starting. We anticipate under the contract that the go-live date would be March of
Okay.
next year.
Okay. Is that going to help your workload or make it a little more difficult?
I think that, well, okay, from now until March, that's going to be a strain, right? Anytime we're implementing new things, we're remodeling, it's not going, the stuff isn't going to be in the same place. We're going to spend more time looking for things, we're not going to be able to walk from one part of the office to the other during this remodel. There's going to be challenges there, but it's going to be good growth, right? It's needed space, it's needed technology, and even once we hit that go live date, after everyone's trained and we start moving forward, it's not going to just be a snap of the fingers, but hopefully by Q4 of next year, things will be humming. I do think that we will have more efficient employees in the state's attorney's office.
I'm okay with 1. Dean, do you have any comments on this one? It's better if you speak before Jean. That's what Danielle said. Is there somewhere? Dean, are you there?
Must not be on there. I'm sure he was going
It
to
just
support
kind of goes
too.
in and out, it seems like, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I'm here, I just can't figure out how to work the buttons, but no, I don't have any comments.
Okay, thanks, Dean.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm fine with 1. I think that, I think I could go to 2, but I think 1 gives you an opportunity to put PBK in place, see how the system works for you, how efficient you are, and then you can be back here next year.
You all right with that? We gave you 1.
It's better than some of the outcomes. I'm I'm not gonna bite the hand that's
Yeah.
feeding me right now.
That's right.
I appreciate just the support that the commission has given me in the past year and a half, and I know that they're hard decisions,
Yeah.
right? This is taxpayer money, so that's not an easy thing to do. So I appreciate everything you're doing and the support you've given me. Thank you.
All right, we have one left. Chris?
Chris Swanson, Minnehaha County Treasurer, and I am asking for a tax and license technician. And the reason I'm asking for this position mainly is because I'm actually having more of an issue. I guess I should go back a little bit. I've got front staff, I've got back staff. The back staff is where I'm really struggling with, because when my front staff technicians are gone, which is usually on a daily basis, somebody either calls in sick, somebody's on vacation, or some unforeseen thing happens, then I'm having to pull, when we're very busy, I have to pull my back staff up to the front, which in turn, they don't get their work done, which they are over the top, loaded, bombarded with either titles, out-of-state titles, unit liens. It is just unbelievable what they're being burdened with, and I cannot, at this point in time, shuffle any more work to anybody else, or they're gonna blow a gasket. They're overworked, they really are. I'm trying to cross-train, but I'm finding it very difficult to find the time to pull somebody to cross-train, because we're busy. And we can't leave, we can't give up the time that we're needed to serve our customers to try to train somebody else, especially on a busy day. Now, today is one of those beautiful days where we're actually just kind of coasting. Now, when I go downstairs, you watch, I'll have a line like crazy, but normally, it's not that way. Normally, we are really struggling with that back staff and getting our work done. And I've picked up a lot of the load too, myself, which in turn has made it difficult for me to probably go to meetings or things that I would like to go to further educate myself on the position. So by hiring a tax license technician, I think it would just help us have somebody up front so I can leave my back staff alone and just let them do what they have to do to get done. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Can you put a couple part-time more positions
Well,
in, or can you
so-
not get them?
Well,
or-
right now, we've got one part-time, well, we've got two part-timers right now. One didn't work out, but the one of our part-timers is now applied for a full-time. So now we're down to one part-time, which does help. I mean, it's been good, but it's, a lot of people that are applying is like, I want a full-time position. So I say, would you be interested in a part-time position in the meantime? So then when a full-time comes up, they automatically just apply for the full-time, and then I'm kind of back to square one.
Yeah.
So, but it has worked out, yes. Those part-timers have worked out.
So how many part-timers do we have approved for your office? Just two?
We have three, I believe, right, Carrie? Three, yes.
Would it help if we approved more part-time staff possibilities?
Possibly.
I'm looking at Carrie, too. Do we pay them enough that they would even come?
I don't know. Carrie, I need your expertise here.
Recruitment's a challenge. I mean, I think one of the things that Dr. Tracy said would be helpful is if we added those part-time staff, that they might become a funnel for part-time, and we have had several of our part-timers, not several, a couple of our part-timers apply for and get considered. I think it's been helpful for filling some of those busy
Yeah.
times for you.
It has.
I'm not sure about your space. And
It is crowded. Yeah, if I can speak to that. So those pods, there's a few that are bigger, but most of them are pretty small. It gets very crowded in there. And then what happens is, with our part-timers also, is like, they are switching windows frequently, because when somebody goes to lunch, they're starting at this window. Somebody goes to lunch, then they're going to this window. Then somebody goes to lunch, they go to another window. That's been an issue, kind of concerned about balancing at the end of the day after that, to make sure that,
Yeah.
Everything is on the up and up, which it has been. We've had a few issues, but we've got them ironed out. A lot of movement.
Yeah.
A lot of movement.
So how many part-time people I got confused. Do you have?
We've got two right now, and one is applying for a full-time position.
Should be down to one.
Okay.
so down to one.
You're
And she works,
you're
and she works,
advertising to fill
yes,
the-
yes.
okay.
And she, and our part-time, the one part-time, she's only 3 days a week.
Did you have a comment, Gerald?
Yeah, I am her liaison, and I've watched the activity, frankly, with the number of rooftops growth and the number of automobile sales. I think this is time to move this ahead to solve the issues that we face. And it's a pleasure to work with her.
I would say that pulling back staff that get paid a whole lot more up to the front to be at a window is not a good use of money either.
Agreed.
And then they get behind.
And they're
So,
overwhelmed.
Yeah. So I would be supportive.
I can support that.
Thank you,
All right.
thank you. Any other questions, or?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Dean, did you hear that? We did support one position, tax and license person for the treasurer's office.
I want to precede my comments with saying that I was there on Tuesday, and I did my part to subsidize our budget, and the staff there was fantastic, and I've been there several times in the last few months. And, always got great service, very limited waiting time. That being said, I have a hard time supporting an additional staff person for a window position. I don't know if that's specifically what this is for. I'm having a hard time supporting one.
Were you able to hear the testimony?
Say that again?
Were you able to hear Chris's comments? I know sometimes it's hard to hear on the phone.
Quite honestly, it's very difficult to hear a lot of the comments. So no, I didn't quite get all of them.
I think the bottom line was it's cheaper to put somebody at the front and leave our back staff who are paid a higher salary working on the work they should be instead of pulling them back and forth and interrupting the work they're doing. And with Gerald being a liaison, that's why we decided to move forward.
And I don't know how you can measure this, but it seems to me that Chris has done a great job, and our staff, our wait times at those windows diminished drastically. Huge. I hate to punish for doing a good job, but I just don't, from my observation, and it's probably not real scientific, but I'm having a hard time based on what I've observed.
But can I make?
Yes, Chris has a comment. Speak really loud
Okay,
right into the microphone.
But the reason we are having our shorter lines is because I'm always pulling somebody up from the back. Because I believe that we need to be serving our customers out in front first and foremost. But it has really hurt the back. And I can see where they are becoming overwhelmed. I'm concerned for them, that one day they're just gonna walk, one's gonna walk out anyway. They've just got too much on their plate. And I'm picking up slack, which I don't mind doing. It's been a great learning experience for me, but I am also missing out on meetings that would help me become more educated in this position. And I find that to be really important. I need to know the laws, I need to know the statutes, and I'm not getting that in just due to the fact that I'm an employee right now in the office, which again, I'm not complaining. I'm a worker, I like to work. But it's getting to be a little bit too much, I'm afraid.
So what I'm hearing is the concern is more about the back staff than the windows.
That is correct, but if I can keep my windows full, I don't have to bother my back staff, and they're paid more than the front. But if you want to hire someone in the back, I'm okay with that too.
We can have this conversation again, Commissioner Karski, when you're back. I mean, obviously, we're not done with this until we finish later this fall, but I think at this point, we have 3 in favor of doing it, and Commissioner Barth is not here either, but I think right now we have 3 that think this is justified. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yep. All right, we have gone through all of our positions. I think we're going to go back to, unless you have something else on that, is there any discussion on any additional budget items that you wanted to talk about that you saw? I think that we pretty much covered everything we wanted to cover. It's just on the agenda, so I'm just bringing it up. Okay, and then update and the means of finances. Ben? Yep, and I'm going to just float out an idea after he's done. Go ahead, Ben. Why don't you talk about what you have, and I'm just going to float an idea. I don't know that it's... Okay.
As we presented the updated means of finance earlier, any of these new positions we would propose would be ARPA-funded positions for as long as we have the funding. So there really won't be a net impact to the cash applied rate for these positions, but it is a short-term funding option, just like any other grant positions. So we will run these new positions through, calculate all the benefits and things like that, but you have the estimated costs on there already. But we can run those numbers and provide some updated information for you in the upcoming weeks.
So I'm not planning on us having a meeting tomorrow unless you have burning things you need to be here, that you think we need to be here for tomorrow. We actually we have a meeting on Tuesday, a commission meeting on Tuesday, and then we have a meeting, we have 2 more meetings this month. We have 3 meetings in a row now, and then we'll have 1 meeting off, because that'd be the second week of July already, the second Tuesday. Our adoption of the provisional budget is the 26th. September 6th is our statutorily required public hearing, and our final adoption is September 27th. So we can work on anything in between. The budgeted positions are all coming from ARPA right now. And so I think that discussion about whether we want to use opt-out dollars, we need to still have that.
One follow-up question, is there still discussion on the juvenile correctional officer between 2 and 3 positions? Have you made a decision on that, or is that to be determined?
I went 3, but I don't know if I'm going to get overruled.
I understand the argument.
Berger, I do have something I want to talk about real quick when there's an opportunity.
Okay, we're talking about juvenile correction officers at the moment, and then I will pull you back in.
Well, I frankly had that conversation, as I mentioned, with Jamie, and we talked about 50% of his requests, so I'll stick with that for now.
And I had it, and it was 3 to 1. Do we want to see what we could do for salary increases and a differential, and go with 2 at this point and see what we think? We still got plenty of time to look at that.
Yes, that's what we should do.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm going to throw something else out, and this is just food for thought, this is all ARPA funding. We actually don't have to wait until, I don't think we have to wait until January of 2023 to add some of these if we needed them, because we have ARPA funding that we could add some of these earlier if it was going to help our offices, because we do have the funding. I'm not asking for discussion right now if that's not where we want to go. I just think that's food for thought. So, Commissioner Karski, you had a comment.
Yes, thank you. I looked at our county fees that we charge. We were given this large spreadsheet, and I talked to the sheriff about this, because I noticed that the DOC bed rate, which was set by the state, $70 a night, and it's well below what our cost. I figured, I did the math, it's costing us $100,000 a year because the state does not pay us an adequate rate for housing DOC prisoners when they need to use county facilities. I think this needs to be included in our legislative platform to get that changed, because it hasn't been changed since 2017. So $100,000 is a lot of money, especially when we look at corrections officers jail and what that for that part of the budget.
Good point. I think we have someone coming to the microphone. You'll have to talk Jeff right into the microphone so Commissioner Karski can hear you.
Commissioner Karski, can you hear me? I think.
Commissioner
No?
Karski, can you hear Jeff?
I can't hear him.
No, you're on mute.
If you get up close and talk, I can.
Okay,
The legislature is doing a summer study on collaboration between the counties and DOC on various areas where they can work together better. There was a meeting, I think it was last week, hearing out in Pierre last week that I attended. This was brought up there. It'll also be brought up in future discussions. There's two different statutes on the books that address what DOC pays counties. There's one that says the rate can be negotiated with the Secretary of Corrections for DOC inmates. The $70 rate that the commissioner is referring to is specific to parole. Well, those are the DOC inmates we hold that are parole. So this was brought up, it was touched upon at last week's meeting. There's going to be at least 2 more meetings scheduled throughout the summer that this will continue to be brought up, because this is something that I agree definitely needs to be addressed. There's no county in the state that I'm aware of charging $70 a day. Everybody's above that. So this will come up again as the summer goes on with that study.
thank you. Commissioner Karski, did you get all of that?
I think I got at least 90% of it, and from what I understand, it's being worked on.
Good, thank you. All right, comments from either of you people?
I'm curious when we think are we just going to talk in one of our general commission meetings about the idea of layering in?
Do we want to do it now? I mean, I have my thoughts on it already, but
Carol's anxious to tell us something.
yeah.
I'm not sure that I have a well-formed thought for you, commissioners, but yes, you have different options to go through and do. What we would really like to know today is that means of finance that we've presented is a go. We will add in, I think, is it 8 positions, 9 positions?
10. Depends if it's 2 or 3 at JD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that we'll go through and refine that. It's, these guys did a phenomenal job in getting material together for you today. So, yes, you have the option, you have 4.75 that is available for opt-out dollars that you can draw down with. That you approved in 2018. You've done a phenomenal job in not spending that all in one year, as we know has happened in the past with budgets. So we don't know how that, the valuation will come in yet. Centrally assessed, to me, always seems to come in the last Thursday of August. Don't ask me why I have that date in my head, but it always seems like it comes in that right before Labor Day. And so that usually increases a little bit. It is not a significant amount of money that centrally assessed brings to the table yet, and just some fine tuning on there. So that may give you the feel, if it drops a little bit more, does that allow you to keep property taxes flat for introducing some opt-outs? That's all now information that you go through and get. You do not have to pull the final plug on that until the end of September, correct? Would that be? Okay, so yes, we'd post it for the September 6th hearing, which is the first Tuesday in September. So you've got a little bit of time in there. You guys have got some big decisions, and we haven't heard the word cliff today, but we all know it's coming.
What would you think about taking our first commission meeting in July and schedule, obviously I don't know what's on the agenda, but either scheduling an 8 o'clock budget meeting or scheduling a budget meeting immediately following the commission meeting to talk through some of these issues, and then at least we have a date. That would be, I don't know what that is. I don't know what the date is, but
It's July 5th. It's right after the 4th of
Yeah, that's
July.
right.
As far as I know, we've got every commissioner there. We'll be missing a commissioner on the 21st and the 28th this next week.
So if we did that and had it on the 5th, that would give us, does that give us one more week before we have to have it approved? Where we're all present?
No, 3. That would give you 3. So you've got the 5th, and then you'd have the 14th, no,
No, because we don't have the second commission.
the second
month.
one. I'm
So
getting
we'd
my
have-
Junes and Julys mixed up with dates.
So we'd have we'd still have an additional commission.
12th, you will not meet.
Right.
And then the following, you'd have 2 commission meetings after that yet.
Okay, so we would have time, I think, if you're all right with on the 5th, do you think an hour will do it? Or do you think that we should do it immediately following the commission meeting? We could take a 10-minute break and then come back. At least it's something on the calendar that says we're going to continue the discussion. We'll have a little bit, then these guys will have the numbers and thoughts on that. Look at your calendar. I didn't look at mine.
We can do either. I'm anticipating that the commission meeting next Tuesday is going to be longer, just because we haven't had a commission meeting for a few weeks now. So the 21st, we've got quite a few things coming in at that point. The 5th will be the first time we've got all 5 commissioners back again. And I know we do plan on doing exec that day.
Yeah. So it would either be before or after. I don't know what you think. Or do we do them both? And if we finish at 8, from 8 to 8:45, then we don't have to come back afterwards?
I mean, I think we could probably do it in 45 minutes. I just hate to start a conversation and then have to end it because
Walk
we're
out.
pushed up against the deadline. So I guess if I got to decide, I would do it after the commission meeting, just so we don't have to worry about the deadline.
Traditionally, you have your building committee on
Oh, on the 5th. This is true, too, and I don't have that on my calendar, so. We might have a building committee meeting that day, so it couldn't be at 8 o'clock. So can we just tentatively schedule that? I think we need to have a chance to just talk about it again. Everybody needs a chance to kind of let things settle, dust settle, and talk about it again, especially if we're going to cancel tomorrow's meeting. Unless you want to meet tomorrow.
I think it'd be good to have all the commissioners there.
Yeah, and everybody's got a chance to weigh in person. All right.
We will schedule a budget meeting to immediately follow the commission meeting on July 5th.
Yes, and it would actually be immediately following the executive session, because it sounds like we have one. Okay.
Thank you, including a budget meeting. So you guys might want to pack a snack that day.
That'll be a long day. This is opportunity for public comment, if anyone wants to speak on anything that's not on today's agenda. All right, I look for motion. Yep, come up to the microphone, Nate, so I can hear you.
Were we decided on the 2 or 3?
We're at 2 and 3.
Okay, so that's still up for discussion. I just like to share one point on where those staff would be going and why
Yes.
it's important to have 3 for our current staffing needs.
Yes.
In order to maintain coverage, we've had to move 2 shifts off of the 3 to 11 shift to cover on the weekends. And so we would be replacing those 2 shifts. The 3 to 11 shift does not have the support of administrative staff when incidents arrive, and so they need additional help and support, and this really brings them up to full speed
Yep.
with weekend coverage. And then the other need is on the overnights. So we have 2 shift supervisors and 2 teams of 2 working the overnight. And the overnight is the place where oftentimes you get drunk and disorderly individuals coming in. While all the kids are in the room and asleep during that time, room checks need to be completed, safety checks need to be completed, and with only 4 staff on the overnight, that doesn't allow us to adequately keep our staff safe and our youth safe. So I just wanted to share where those staff would be allocated to and why each of those is needed.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion second. I'm going to say all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimously. I did not do a roll call on that one. We're done.
Thanks.